That's at your house, that's at your house.
So, but we've had that situation. So I know you guys are sort of a family-friendly restaurant, but if you turn into a just a drink fest on a given night of the week, and then come to fights and chairs flying, all of that fun stuff.
No, I understand. Like you said, we're very family-oriented. The closest thing that we even have anything like that is the wine is half price just when we're on the wait. But we're not giving away $2 beers and stuff like that. Even the bar is very small, so it's mostly dining room service.
Okay.
So I think in the memo that Teresa had sent you earlier, she included a menu, but I just wanted to give you these. These are done specifically for this location.
Right. That's sort of generic square menu.
Yeah. So these they are. The reason I brought my glasses, I actually have to use my glasses to read these, so I'm so sorry, and I can email it to you to follow up with that. So the only thing that's missing from here is, I think the sodium content, which we have on the one that was included in the original, and I believe in her memo, we had indicated that nationally prices may go up just a teens.
Is there anything special for the Harlem audience?
I don't know, that menu they just handed to us, so I didn't get a chance to look at that.
Possible? I could try to work that out. I do know that we're working on a custom menu just for New York, so that'll be across all of New York. I can't, that's outside of big league. I can't commit to something just for Harlem.
Oh, I thought you were a big league.
Yeah. Sorry, sir.
You just come from a $2 drink?
Sounds like it happened.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Do you guys have any health conscious choices?
Right.
Heart healthy stuff?
Yeah, we've got a lighter fare menu which is on there, so we've got about 5 or 6 choices. There's a steak dish on there. They're all under 550 calories. Salmon, rosemary chicken, chicken sorrento, which is 2 pieces of chicken with a citrus glaze and mixed vegetables. So we're trying to stay ahead of that too. And then we've always got the salad, the soup and salad.
In the motor slightly off center questions. Is the food actually cooked there? Or is it urban rumor that the food is half cooked and then heated up and half cooked that urban?
No. We've actually, there are a lot of places just to save money. I'll use the soup as an example, where they make, they get the soup in a bag. We actually make the soups there from scratch every day. So.
How about the other entrees?
Yep, they're made there. Everything's cooked there.
Everything's fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So the pasta's boiled there?
We boil the pasta there. Yeah, the pasta will come in pre-made and everything like that.
Was that true at some of the Olive Garden places? That's just like an urban myth that.
That's more or less an urban myth. Yeah, we make this stuff.
More or less.
I have a serious question. I wasn't at $2. My question
We're having fun.
is, when you have to do you card the people before they get the liquor? That's what is the policy on that?
So we card the people before we serve them liquor.
Mm-hmm.
But even as far as with if you go in after we open, we'll have something called a Zioff tablet on the table, where you can order drinks from that tablet.
Mm-hmm.
So you can order non-alcoholic drinks from the tablet on the first round, but you can't order alcoholic drinks from the first round because someone has to check their ID, that type of stuff. So we got some precautions in place there.
Okay, so could you just give us that in writing? How it works exactly? I just wanted to know.
Sure, okay, I can get that on you.
You may not know this, but have you guys had, let's say, in the New York area, have you ever had any underage drinking problems or SLA violations?
No, not to my knowledge.
Just to let you know, we're having a May 5th. That's okay, they can hear it 100 times. They'll all show up, National Black Theater. I'll have you covered. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to make sure you're at the Olive Garden that's in the same building as the home.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in conversation with Mr. Eric Palatnik. He's representing Wharton Properties. He claims to be representing the 6 stores of the building, which you would be one of. And the architect is Gambino Laporta. architecture. So these are the people that I'm in communication with regarding the delivery schedule conversation for loading and offloading on the street side, as well as you have a loading dock in your building. So I wanted to share the minutes of my last meeting, which happened 2 weeks ago, that had extensive concerns voiced about this issue, and that we would be in communication with this gentleman because they're working on a street traffic survey for us, and they've done a lot of research.
On 125th Street?
124.
Oh,
124. Your loading dock entry is on the 124th side, and they're conducting like these surveys for us. It's a good faith effort, but I want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is happening.
Is that our copy?
This is your copy.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I would be in contact with you just to keep you on board because there will be a negotiation process happening. If I could have your card.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee?
And I know that there's been some talk about getting workers. So what's happening, it looks like, is that some places, there are enough staff from the especially young people who, I guess, get towards these jobs from the living area. Then one or two other places that, I remember that some of us went to Red Lobster, and there was just no staff there, the tables empty, but you couldn't sit. So then the question started being asked, and it looked like that in certain places, the management and the supervisors are really supportive and working, and I get it, that it's a job, it's a job. I mean, it's not the employer's job to make the employee feel great. But I mean, how do you go about that? You seem to be, I mean, what's your thoughts about that, about, working to retain staff so that, there may be jobs available, but if there's things that's not working out and they're not working there. So I mean, what's your thoughts about that, about how to retain staff and work with staff, particularly young people, which it looks like are geared towards this?
Well, I will say that to a certain extent, I do think that it's the employer's job to make the employee feel great, because the employees have a lot of different options that they can go to, and so when I have someone come on my team, I think it's my responsibility to make sure that they've got a safe environment to work in. They're happy when they come to work. They're getting paid right, and we're not overly stressing them. That they can work in a comfortable environment. But for me, I think that the number one issue when you talk about retention, or number one tool, is really just morale. And so the restaurants that I've worked in, right now I'm working in Queens, and before I worked in Paramus, we actually had number one guest satisfaction scores in the company, had high sales, and that's part to the way that we treat the employees. I think that some managers and I'll talk about other concepts, some managers and other concepts don't really know that the employees are the ones that really, get the results for you. They're the ones out there talking to the guests. If something goes wrong, the server is the one that's out there, front facing the guests. And so I think that there's a certain level of respect that you have to show your employees when you're putting them in that position. So I like to tell my employees that I actually work for them. That's my thought on it.
Can I just follow up on his question?
Yeah.
What kind of training do you have for the employees? Because we have found that the training of the employees makes the difference in our community. There needs to be a higher level of training for the staff. Not that the young people in the community are not ready to work, but what kind of training do you provide for these people that are not quite up to snuff?
Okay, so I'll answer that question. So for the opening, I'll start with that. For the opening, it trains actually 6 days of training. We have corporate trainers come in to help them. It's 7 hours a day, and so there's 2 groups. So we're not doing everyone at the same time. We're kind of splitting it up into the day shift and the night shift, just to make sure that everyone gets the right amount of training. After we open, it goes to more of a typical training schedule because we're not training so many people at the same time. And so if I hire a server, and I have a server training class, it's usually about 3 to 4 people, and there's one trainer there, and they get 40 hours of training. So the training doesn't just stop after they clock out and train that last day when they start their job. We have a group of trainers throughout the restaurant. There's 12 to 14, and so they get partnered up with that person. It's kind of like a mentor and help to introduce them into the culture of the restaurant. So they don't come in and just as a strange person in a strange land. They got a couple people that they can connect to and relate to. So 2 weeks afterwards, there's actually a training class that I lead as a GM, where I kind of ask them how they feel about working there, if they have any barriers, how can we can eliminate barriers. So really, my goal is if I hire someone, I mean, people. If I bring people on, they don't know what they're doing. They leave. It costs me money too. At the end of the day. So my goal is really to kind of create a nurturing shell around that person from when we first hire them to when they can do the job on their own.
Okay, thank you.
And just going back to hiring for a moment. So when will this start? How are you going to go about the actual hiring process?
So right now we're working with
of some sort, or a hiring day.
Right now we're working on with Monster, LinkedIn. There's going to be a lot of advertising on Facebook. We're going to officially start the hiring process on June 17th, but we're participating in that open house or that job fair. I'm sorry, where we're going to have in conjunction with that, we're going to have an open house a couple of days before we officially start hiring. So we'll be talking to candidates at the job fair at the state park, and we'll also be inviting them to the open house later on.
And are you gonna send us so we can send it out? You can
Sure.
do that.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Did you work with city services at all for this opening? Anything, like, did you work with Department of Small Business Services or EDC on anything?
I'm not aware of any. If we did, we'll get back to you. How much of that?
And if you didn't,
I'll get back to you either way. We'll
I mean, is
answer
it
that.
still possible?
So city services, is that the?
I'm just
I'm curious.
I mean, if they didn't, we're just gonna ask them if they need any, if you need any assistance, we'll be able to connect with the services.
So you mean just city services overall, any,
Yeah.
okay. We'll find out, we'll let you know. All right. And we'll also get back to the question on the card. Can we put that through you? Is that right?
Sure. Yes. Are there any questions from the community? Any questions from the community for Olive Garden?
What are going to be your hours of operation?
So Sunday through Thursday we'll be open from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Friday and Saturday from 11 to 11.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Next up is Rascal Craft, doing business as Harlem Hops. Sorry for the long. It's okay. You learned all the answers. That's what they did.
It's a good prep. They could print these out.
Okay. Okay. These were circulated before electronically, but
You use it for the sign? Yeah, with that
okay, this is Rascal Craft LLC, and do business as Hop House Harlem, 2224 Frederick Douglass Blvd, in the northeast corner of 120th Street. This you may be familiar with as the former Bad Horse Pizza that closed a few months ago.
Wow. I wonder
Yes.
why.
So we know why. Explain.
Anyway, that's beside the point. So you guys are looking for a wine and beer license based on your name and the menu you provided. It looks like you're going to focus on craft beer and things of that nature. So why don't you tell us about your ideas for food and drink and what you're planning.
Sure. Hi, my name is Michael Capadona, and
My name is Erin Kerrigan.
Aaron Kerrigan. Aaron recently signed the lease over, actually, just 2 weeks ago, over on 2224 Frederick Douglass, formerly known as Bad Horse Pizza. And our idea here is to build on John's success. For those of you who know John, who was the owner of Bad Pizza, he had a nice operation making pizzas that, as we discovered, being up here, were a big hit. I mean, people were coming in the door and wanting to order pizza, and they had their favorites, and we want to build on that. So we're going to, John's core business of doing pizzas and doing delivery, and is going to be retained by us. we're going to expand in the area of introducing a different level of craft beer service to Harlem. Aaron and I both love beer, and we want to celebrate the hops. So it's Hop House Harlem. There's going to be lots of beers. There's going to be maybe 12 or 15 taps, but then lots of bottles and cans. And we're also going to incorporate hops as a menu item in our desserts and some of our savories as well. And we want it to be educational, so we're teaming up with local brewers and beer masters and beer makers, and we'll have educational sessions in the restaurant as well, so people can come in a very collegial and relaxed sort of way, can enjoy different beers and learn something about them as well. We're not brewing beer. We're just going to be celebrating the process of and the enjoyment of it.
Have you met Celeste Beatty? Sugar Hill? She hopefully will be brewing her own beer in Harlem.
Yes, actually, we approached her about brewing a signature beer for us. So,
You're way ahead.
no, not exactly, but we certainly want to team up with our local vendors and so we're not doing a lot, and for those of you who've been there, we're not doing a lot of, it's really cosmetic, paint and moving things around a little bit. We do want to, like I said, Aaron just signed the lease 2 weeks ago, so we'd like to get it open as soon as possible. Down the road, next year or so, or whenever, the idea of having a Sidewalk Cafe would be great. We're not pushing that for right now. We really just want to open the restaurant and start making pizzas and serving beer.
That house didn't have an outdoor cafe, did they?
Did not.
No. Have you guys either of you had restaurant experience in the past?
I've been in restaurants all my life. I've owned restaurants and operated restaurants. My most recent, and mostly in New York, but also in LA and Philadelphia and Chicago and in Greenwich, Connecticut. Most recently, I was in New York for 5 years with Aaron in a proper. I guess that's our cue. We're finished. We were in one of the Hiltons. We were in one of the Hiltons in Chelsea. Okay, yeah, the restaurant.
And how many people do you think you'll be hiring?
We expect to have a staff of about 10. So unlike our colleagues over at Darden, which I think they said 130, it's hard to, my last position in New York, we had about 130 employees, and our peak level was a very seasonal place. We had a rooftop bar, we had room service and all those stuff. So we had a lot of employees, and I applaud that. That's a large operation, which we're very local, we're very small. Aaron's going to be there every day, so Aaron's is going to be not only with the manager as well. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with myself, and but it's a small place. If you've been there, it's very small. We'll probably have 50 seats or so, and that's including the bar. So it's very manageable.
You should sneak into their open house and have that card.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought about that, but
I'm gonna. We did get. I know you posted your public notice of the hearing. We did get today an email from a gentleman who lives in your building. Oh, by the way, do you guys have petitions this morning? Oh, it's in here. Okay, great.
But there's nobody for the building.
I live in the building.
What's your name? Wait, what's your name?
He's not on the list.
I'm not on the list, but I live in the building.
oh, you do?
Okay.
And
Are you the one who emailed? Okay, so let's go one at a time. So did you get signatures from folks in the building?
Right.
No, just from neighbors in and around the
Did you
building.
speak to people in the building?
I have not.
Did you try to speak to them?
I can attempt to do that, yes.
Yeah, so, between now, if we approve you here today, we're going to have you come back to our general board meeting, which is the first Wednesday of next month, whatever the date is, 3, 4, 5. And if you could get, attempt to get signature support from people in the building, which is important. And we did get an email today. Let me find it.
So did you enjoy John's pizza?
No, it was terrible.
It was terrible.
I thought they're terrible too.
Oh,
It's
really?
expensive and terrible. Expensive and terrible.
Well, definitely expensive. We thought it was expensive too. We're not going to be priced the same way that John was priced. Be much more.
Got questions for you.
Absolutely.
So
You're
this,
welcome.
so we got an email today from a Michael Donnelly, who lives in a building. He says, I live directly above where Harlem Hop House is located. While I'm excited that another business will be moving to the space, I have some concerns as well that I hope you can communicate on my behalf to the community board. It gets better, don't worry. He says the previous restaurant, they were a good neighbor because they had good food, great hours, and low noise levels. They closed at 10 a.m. weeknights and 11 p.m. on Friday, and they rarely played music, and when they did, it was at low levels. So he gave high neighbor skills to the predecessor. And essentially he's asking, will your noise levels be similar, will your hours be similar? So I know you gave us your hours, you'll be open till 10 on
Yes.
weekdays?
No,
And
Monday and
And
Monday to
12.
Wednesday.
Yeah, on Friday, Saturday.
so midnight on weekends? Okay. Are you guys gonna have music, entertainment, and the like?
Background music recorded.
Okay. Have you guys done anything in terms of further soundproofing in the space? Have you?
We have not. No.
So, I mean, that obviously is always a concern for us. Noise, crowds, fights, all of that good stuff. And, if things get loud, we're one of the first people that the neighbors will be calling.
Of course.
That at 311
Mhm.
at DEP, which I think you probably know about from your.
I do, but we're not a club. Our music is strictly background. We're not doing live music. We don't want that atmosphere.
Okay.
It's,
So you're familiar with Bad Horse?
yes,
So aside from, it looks like you'll be staying open a little bit later than them.
correct.
Aside from that, do you foresee that there'll be a major change in the impact on what you're doing as compared to the previous? Not that they're, not that you have to fit their paradigm completely, but just in some sense.
Right, so our operational footprint is similar to what Bad Horse is doing, yes. However, I've been to Bad Horse several times, Aaron probably more than I have, and we felt that the service was lacking there. We felt there was a lack of, and not to cast aspersions, but a lack of ownership presence, a lack of community outreach, and a lack of access, in part because there seemed to be an arbitrariness with the hours of operation and such. And we're service-oriented people. So this is the industry we grew up in. This is what we want to bring to Harlem, and it's more manageable because it's such a smaller operation that we expect to give it a good service gain, better than we had before.
Will you be child-friendly or?
Yeah, well, listen, we're
family,
serving pizza, absolutely. We'll have high chairs, and it's not absolutely yes, children friendly, and we'll have a children friendly.
Sir, you said you used to go to Bad Horse a lot. Do you live nearby, or?
I don't, my sister lives nearby, so, yeah, I've been there over the past couple of years. And, yeah, we're just looking to build on what we've already established.
Okay. So again, we talked a little bit about hiring. Do you know when you're going to start hiring? Do you know when you're open?
Well, there are a number of, like I said, this lease we just signed. We'd like to be open in the month of May, as what the plan is. We already have two strong candidates that are as good as hired that we've worked with before, both are Harlem residents. One's in the kitchen, one's in the front of the house. we won't hire for at least a month to fill up the position.
And what will your compensation?
Front of the house would be a minimum wage plus tips, and the kitchen staff will be paid probably an average of $15 or $16 an hour.
You've been in the restaurant business for a while. What do you think of the new elevated minimum restaurant worker wages? Do you think that's going to negatively impact, positively impact?
Us or generally the business? I think it's going to, generally I think it's going to be a huge positive impact. It's going to draw and retain a more motivated employee. I mean, you know, one of our colleagues from Harlem Tavern brought it up that, you know, the biggest challenge in this industry is recruiting, training, and maintaining staff. I mean, that we spend far too much time doing that. And part of the uphill battle is, you know, the guaranteed wage. $15 or $16 an hour is, while it's may not be enough, it's certainly a step in the right direction. And operationally, our business plan allows for that. So we welcome that. Yeah.
Now, will your business plan allow for it because you increase, I mean, is it similar to Danny Meyer where there is an increase in food product costs?
Well, Aaron feels very strongly, and I do too, that John's pizzas were overpriced. So our prices will be more modest than his. Danny Meyer's business model is very different from ours. You know, he's working in the direction of eliminating the tipping system, which you know, I ideologically am aligned with that, but that's not what we're doing. We just want to make sure that we're able to find and fairly compensate and maintain a good staff.
I'm just curious. You articulated a lot of reasons why paying $15 is a good thing. Well, you articulated a lot of those reasons. If that's the case, then why was it not done before? Why wasn't the wage raised before by you and maybe some of the other people in the business?
Restaurants, as you know, operate on most restaurants in the city and every city fail. And there's lots of reasons for that. You know. But not an insignificant reason is because of the labor costs. So, and real estate and all kinds of reasons. But I think that there's a short-sightedness to that. And the realization of that, listen, when I grew up in the restaurant business a long time ago, we were able to attract a higher level of employee than we can now. Right now I'm working in New Jersey, and the level of employee that I get has basically no experience. We're bootstrapping, so that we're bringing in people who have no experience or little to no experience in restaurants, and as our colleague from Darden said, enclosing them in a cocoon that's taking them through the process of learning and being acculturated into a whole new industry. And the restaurant business is not really set up to do that. It's a slash and burn industry. So you're bringing in people, you know, you got a pulse, you're on the line. You got a pulse, you're a busser. You got a pulse, you can answer my phone. And that's the way it's operated. I mean, I'm sorry, but you know, that's the case. And that's a business practice that was, you know, embraced by the industry out of necessity, but it also became more. It became more than that. It became something like just the way we do things here, and became exploitative. So I welcome the fact that we're that the industry is moving away from that. I think it's a huge positive, and really no negative, except that it might have an impact on prices. But you know what? You can't price your menu by exploiting your employees. I mean, you know, if you can't afford it, change your menu. If you can't pay your employees because your menu is too expensive to operate, then change your menu. I don't know, I mean, that's our feeling.
Are we talking about it, Freddie?
Yes, I'm sorry, I know I carry on a little bit, so.
No. I just have a question, really. Your lease, how long is it? I just have a page. We just have the first cover of it. We don't even have any of the details. So,
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else from the committee? Any questions from the community?
Yeah, when I first moved into that, have you been in the apartments at all? Might want to do that, I'll invite you. It might not be a problem in the summer because all the windows are closed, but when the temperature is still cool and you don't put the air conditioners in, you need to keep the windows open because the heat is either on or it's not. In other words, you have to lift the window in the winter sometimes because the heat is so hot. And that means you hear everything outside. And so I can hear chocolate at night and the audience out there pretty loud. And so that's always a concern. You know, it's kind of like the Indians by the waterfall. You forget that it's there after a while. You get used to it. But it can get loud sometimes. And if I can hear chocolate across the street on a Friday and Saturday at 10, 11, 12, my concern is I'll hear you guys downstairs. It's not the music, it's the people coming out. And so I guess it's, you know, like any owner, it's the policing of that. It's the kind of making sure how you control that. And I think that's a big concern for a lot of us. Because first of all, I thought you guys were going to be a hip hop house.
That's what we heard today, somebody said.
I was the one that went in there. I was the one that walked in and said,
"Oh,
hip hop parlor. That's going to be interesting. A lot of loud music." And then I thought, oh, I didn't think of the other thing, which is a hop's house. But my concern is beer, drinking, gets a bit loud. People have a good time. So I'm just concerned about that.
Well, we certainly want them to have a good time, and we certainly want to, are going to respect our neighbors. And you're right, it's a management issue. So it's managing the people inside and making sure that we don't overserve and setting up an atmosphere in the restaurant that's respectful, so that they're respectful towards the employees and towards the neighbors and towards the neighborhood.
What sometimes happens, though, is that because there's restaurants on four corners now, you know, sometimes what you have is the bar on the corner, which will be unnamed. They get very loud, and that crowd kind of walks over. And it's not your folks that are coming out of your place that cause the problem. It's somebody else causing the problem.
Yeah.
So that's just another part of, you know, Restaurant Row that we have to get used to as a community. How do we, as owners and people who frequent these places, you know, how do we live with that?
John, I just have a question. There's a question I asked, it's not just for you, but to people who come from the community who live in these